My dad disowned me by text, so I took away everything he valued. I always believed my dad and I had a good relationship. Not perfect, but whose is? We weren't exactly a Hallmark card, but I thought we understood each other. Growing up, he was the kind of dad who never missed a baseball game, but also never hugged me when I needed it. We bonded over sarcasm and practical jokes, keeping emotions safely beneath the surface. Then came the text message. Cold and stark in black and white letters on my phone screen. I've tried, but I just can't do this anymore. You are no longer my son. Don't contact me again. My stomach twisted, my fingers trembling as I reread it again and again, disbelief turning to anger, then to grief. It didn't feel real. How could a father disown his son through a text? Immediately, I tried to call him, desperate for an explanation. The line went straight to voicemail. Panic rising, I texted my siblings, hoping this was some sick joke, but their shocked replies confirmed my worst fears. It was real. That night, alone in my apartment, I lay awake, staring into the darkness, haunted by one question. Why? I had no idea yet that this would spark a war that would change our family forever. In the days that followed, I spiraled into a numbness that felt impossible to break. Every time I glanced at my phone, anxiety surged through me, dreading another message from a family member choosing sides. Friends checked in awkwardly, unsure of what to say. I didn't blame them. I didn't even understand what had happened. My siblings seemed to know as little as I did. Dad wouldn't explain his decision beyond vague mentions of disappointment and betrayal. My older sister, Emily, came to visit, her eyes swollen and voice shaking as she told me. I begged him to reconsider, but he's set. He won't even say why. Emily had always been Dad's favorite. If she couldn't get through to him, I knew no one could. Isolation set in. My family had always revolved around Dad. Family dinners, vacations, traditions, all tied to his approval. Without him, everything fell apart, leaving me feeling abandoned, like a castaway. Weeks passed. One evening, scrolling mindlessly through social media, my eyes caught a family photo posted by my younger brother, Jake. Dad was smiling broadly, surrounded by siblings and cousins, everyone but me. The caption stung like salt on a wound. Family is everything. Something snapped inside me, grief turning cold. If family was everything to Dad, then he'd just shown me exactly how to strike back. Grief morphed into determination. If Dad wanted to erase me, fine. But I wasn't going to fade quietly from his world. The more I replayed that text, the more I realized he didn't just cut me off. He expected me to accept it, shrink away, let him keep playing the patriarch. The irony? I knew exactly what my father cared about. His entire identity was built on his role as the unshakable family man, the pillar of our community, and the successful business owner. Dad lived for appearances. Sunday church, holiday barbecues, his annual Family Man of the Year award at the local Rotary. I used to be proud of him for that. Now it all felt hollow. I started reconnecting with people he'd never expect. My Aunt Lisa, his estranged sister, a few cousins who'd been quietly alienated over the years. Each conversation was like lifting a veil, and secrets started to tumble out. It turned out I wasn't the only one he'd shut out. Stories of old grudges, silent punishments, and emotional manipulation began to fall into place like puzzle pieces. Meanwhile, my friends rallied around me, filling the emotional void my family had left. My roommate Mark, always blunt, put it best. He doesn't own you. He doesn't get to define you. It was the first time in weeks I felt a flicker of power returning. I started to see, maybe I wasn't the problem after all. And maybe, just maybe, it was time my father learned what it felt like to lose the things he valued most. That seed of power grew quickly. I realized that, for my entire life, I'd walked on eggshells around Dad, terrified of disappointing him, desperate for scraps of approval. Now, with nothing left to lose, I was done playing the dutiful son. It started innocently enough, meeting Aunt Lisa for coffee, just to talk. She hadn't spoken to Dad in over a decade. He never forgives, she told me, bitterness etched in every wrinkle. One wrong move, and you're out. That's how he keeps control. We swapped stories, slowly realizing how similar our experiences were. I learned about the real family history, the falling outs, the inheritance drama, the friendships Dad had burned to the ground out of pride. Lisa admitted, I always wish someone would stand up to him. He thinks he's untouchable. I started gathering more information. Bank records, family trust documents, Even the dusty photo albums my father kept locked away. I noticed patterns, the way Dad rewrote stories, erased people, and even doctored photos. His legacy was built on control and image. And then, during one late-night conversation with Emily, I discovered the final piece. Dad's business, the crown jewel of his identity, was not as stable as he let on. There were cracks, disgruntled partners, a few hidden lawsuits, and the real possibility that his carefully maintained empire was built on lies. That's when my plan took shape. If Dad wanted a world without me in it, maybe I could show him what that world looked like. Determined now, I leaned on the connections I'd rebuilt. Aunt Lisa became my unexpected confidant, sharing her own stories of exile and helping me reach out to other relatives Dad had cast aside. I discovered there was a quiet network of us, outsiders who'd once been at the center, all replaced when we no longer fit Dad's version of family. Emily, hesitant at first, eventually sided with me. "I can't keep pretending nothing's wrong," she confessed one night. "He's doing it to you now, but he's always held this over all of us." Her courage bolstered mine. Even Jake, who'd posted the family photo that gutted me, reached out in a moment of regret. "I was just trying to keep the peace," he said quietly. "But it feels so wrong." The more I dug, the more I found. Old friends of Dad's, people I'd known since childhood, revealed stories of business betrayals and grudges. Some of them, tired of Dad's manipulations, were willing to talk. I gathered emails, documents, even a few recorded conversations that showed how he'd kept people under his thumb. I started to see it. My father's greatest strength, his ability to control, was also his greatest weakness. He had built a fortress of secrets and loyalty, but he'd never considered what would happen if those walls began to crumble. I was ready to knock them down. The only question was where to start. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Dad's company was about to celebrate its big anniversary with a lavish gala, an event he treated like the Oscars. Every influential person in town would be there, all eager to congratulate the family man and his perfect clan. I RSVP'd, not attending, but quietly contacted several former employees and family members who'd been burned by Dad over the years. Together, we drafted a letter, factual, unemotional, but damning. It detailed the business abuses, the family betrayals, and included copies of documents Dad never thought anyone would see. We sent the letter, anonymously, to every board member, investor, and even a local journalist who'd always idolized him. That night, as the party raged on in the photos, I sat with Mark and Emily, refreshing my phone obsessively. The fallout was immediate. Investors started calling. The journalist emailed me, hungry for more. Within days, whispers turned to open questions. A board member resigned. The family man, image Dad cherished, began to fracture under the weight of truth. For the first time, he wasn't in control of the narrative. And for the first time, I didn't feel powerless. I felt something close to hope. But I also knew this was just the beginning. Dad wouldn't go down without a fight. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family and even people I barely knew, all asking the same question. "Did you see the news about your dad?" By the next morning, the story had hit local media. Respected businessman faces internal scandal. I watched Dad's carefully polished reputation begin to unravel in real time. Jake called me, his voice low and anxious. "Dad's furious. He's blaming everyone. He thinks you're behind it." For a moment, guilt crept in, but then I remembered that text, the years of control, the pain. "Did he say why he did it? Why did he cut me out?" I asked. Jake hesitated. "He says you betrayed him, but he won't say how. He's telling everyone you're unstable, making things up." I felt a familiar surge of hurt, but it no longer paralyzed me. Instead, it clarified everything. He'd rather destroy my character than admit he could be wrong. Emily and Aunt Lisa checked in constantly, their support a lifeline. The wider family was split. Some backed Dad, others started questioning his story. The secrets and lies were out in the open now, impossible to hide. Late that night, I got a voicemail from Dad, his voice icy and controlled. "You've made your choice. Don't ever come near this family again." But for the first time, I realized I was finally choosing myself. Still, I knew this wasn't over. The deeper wounds, the ones hidden behind the public drama, were about to surface. Days passed, and the gossip only grew louder. People who used to ignore me at family gatherings now sent cautious messages, asking for my side of the story. I hesitated at first. How much did I want to reveal? But then I realized, for years, Dad's narrative had been the only one anyone heard. Maybe it was time for my truth. With Emily's encouragement, I wrote a long, honest post on our family's private Facebook group. I didn't attack. I just described what it felt like to be disowned by text, the years of control, the pattern of cutting people off. I talked about how many of us had been pushed aside for making a single mistake or asking the wrong question. The response shocked me. Messages poured in, not just from family, but from old friends, distant cousins, even some of Dad's former employees. One by one, people shared their own stories of betrayal, exile, or simply never feeling good enough. Even Jake messaged me privately. I had no idea it was this bad. I'm sorry for going along with it. The more people spoke up, the more the facade cracked. Dad's hold on the family began to slip as the truth spread. But as the support for me grew, so did Dad's rage and his desperation to regain control. That's when the real power struggle began. Dad's anger exploded in new ways. He called emergency family meetings, demanding loyalty and threatening to cut off anyone who betrayed the family. Some relatives folded immediately, too afraid of losing their inheritance or their place at the holiday table. But others, Lisa, Emily, Jake, stood their ground. One night, Dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. I almost didn't let him in, but curiosity and a lifetime of wanting his approval got the better of me. He stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. "You've humiliated me," he said, his voice cold and unfamiliar. "You're ruining this family." I met his gaze. "You ruined it the moment you sent that text." He stared at me for a long time, searching for some sign I backed down. But I didn't. For the first time in my life, I felt free from his shadow. "You can't control people by fear forever," I told him. He left without another word. For days, rumors swirled about business partners withdrawing, family money tied up, lawyers circling. Dad was losing control, but instead of apologizing or reaching out, he doubled down, trying to tighten his grip on what little he had left. The final twist, though, was still to come, one I hadn't planned for, but that would force everyone to choose a side for good. As the days dragged on, Dad's once invincible world began to truly unravel. More board members left his company. Rumors surfaced that a major client was pulling out. Family friends, those who used to gush over him at barbecues, suddenly kept their distance. The family man image was shattered, replaced by whispers and sidelong glances. Meanwhile, I received a message from someone unexpected, Ms. Alvarez, Dad's longtime executive assistant. She told me, "I always respected your father, but the way he treated his family, he crossed a line. You're not alone." She offered evidence, emails, legal documents, and testimonies confirming Dad's questionable business practices. With this new information, Emily and I took legal action to challenge parts of the family trust and expose the financial abuse that had cost so many relatives their inheritance. And Lisa came forward too, reclaiming her stake in what had once been her future. Dad was served papers. It was messy, public, and humiliating for him, exactly the outcome he'd always feared. The drama forced our entire family to finally confront all the truths swept under the rug for years. But as I watched the fallout, a new feeling crept in, one I didn't expect. Not satisfaction, but a kind of quiet relief. The weight of his approval was finally gone, replaced by something I'd never truly felt before. With Dad's empire in ruins and the truth finally out, our family entered a strange, fragile peace. Some relatives still blamed me for airing dirty laundry, but most realized they'd lived too long in fear of his moods. Emily moved back into town so we could support each other. Aunt Lisa, finally vindicated, invited us for weekly dinners, a new tradition, free from Dad's shadow. Jake struggled the most. He'd spent years trying to win Dad's love, and now felt lost. We talked late into the night, sometimes arguing, sometimes just sitting in silence. Eventually, he admitted, "I'm angry at him, but I'm angry at myself too. I thought if I did everything right, he'd never turn on me." The irony was that, in losing Dad, we finally found each other. Real conversations replaced polite lies. We laughed about old memories, shared the pain, and started to heal. But for all the relief, I still woke up some mornings missing the fantasy of the father I thought I had. There was grief in knowing we'd never have that back, but also a strange pride in having survived it, together. As for Dad, he retreated into isolation. The man who once demanded total loyalty now answered to lawyers and creditors. For the first time, he was truly alone. And for the first time, I felt whole. In the aftermath, the sense of victory was complicated. I'd imagined that bringing Dad down would feel like pure justice, but in reality, it was bittersweet. Yes, I'd protected my siblings, reclaimed our family's voice, and stopped him from hurting others. But I'd also watched a man, my father, destroy himself, brick by brick. Some nights, guilt crept in. Was I so different from him, using secrets as weapons? Mark, ever the realist, reminded me, you didn't create this mess. You just refused to let it continue. Emily echoed that, telling me he had every chance to make it right. You gave him more grace than he ever gave you. I focused on rebuilding, using the settlement from the trust case to help Jake and Lisa get back on their feet. We donated a portion to a local charity that supports families torn apart by emotional abuse, a gesture that felt more healing than revenge ever could. Family gatherings grew warmer. We didn't tiptoe around uncomfortable topics anymore. The truth, once a threat, became a foundation for real connection. I still receive the occasional cold email from Dad's old friends, blaming me for ruining a good man. I stopped defending myself. I knew now that truth was its defense. If Dad had taught me anything, it was the cost of silence and the freedom of finally breaking it. Just when I thought the storm had passed, another wave hit. My father, desperate and humiliated, tried to contact me through a mutual friend. The message was a strange mix of regret and blame. Never quite an apology, more a plea for things to go back to how they were. For the first time, I didn't feel the old pull to fix things. Instead, I replied honestly. You ended our relationship by text. I spent my life chasing your approval, and I'm done. I hope you find peace, but I won't play this game anymore. It felt strange, liberating, but final. There was no dramatic reunion, no TV movie moment where he begged forgiveness. Just silence. And that was okay. Other aftershocks came too, some positive, some challenging. People I barely knew reached out, sharing their own stories of being disowned or cut off. My story gave them courage to speak up, to set boundaries, to heal. I found myself part of a quiet, supportive community built on honesty instead of fear. Our family, once fractured, started to rebuild. We celebrated birthdays and holidays differently now, inviting in the outsiders who had been left behind. We found joy in second chances. And slowly, I began to believe that what we lost was nothing compared to what we'd gained. The months that followed were quieter, no more headlines, no more explosive texts. I started therapy, working through years of shame and anxiety, untangling my identity from Dad's approval. It was hard, facing the parts of myself that still longed for his validation. But it was also freeing to realize I could set boundaries and still be worthy of love. Emily flourished, too. She became more outspoken at work, less afraid to ruffle feathers. Jake found a new confidence, no longer defined by who he needed to impress. Aunt Lisa, after decades of being written off, finally felt like family again. Letting go wasn't a single moment, it was 100 small choices. I ignored urge to check my phone for Dad's messages, reframing old memories without nostalgia. Allowing myself to grieve not just for the father I lost, but the childhood I never really had. Looking back, I realized that seeking justice wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my own and helping my siblings do the same. The real legacy Dad left was the lesson that love with conditions isn't love at all. If my father ever truly wanted to make amends, the door would be open, but only if he accepted the real me, not the version he tried to control. Until then, I'd keep moving forward on my terms. Nearly a year since that text shattered everything, I look back with a mix of pain and pride. I never thought I'd be the one with the dramatic family story, the person who stood up to the patriarch and lost everything before rebuilding. But here I am, scarred and stronger. If you're reading this after being cut off, rejected, or forced to choose between your truth and someone else's comfort, know you're not alone, and you are not powerless. Family should be a safe place, but sometimes, holding on to toxic bonds costs more than letting go. It's okay to set boundaries, to demand respect, to rebuild with those who truly care. Healing isn't linear. There are setbacks, sleepless nights, and awkward holidays. But there's hope and freedom on the other side. I can't say I'm grateful for what happened, but I'm grateful for who I became. I learned self-respect can mean walking away, that truth matters more than reputation, and that real love isn't conditional. So if you're at your crossroads, remember, you decide what you carry forward. Sometimes justice isn't revenge. It's reclaiming your right to be whole. Thanks for reading. And if you need it, you're enough, just as you are.